Hello and welcome back to Curvy Creek Farm. Today we're canning tomatoes. But this video is about far more than preserving food. It's about preserving a family tradition. My mom learned how to can tomatoes from her Appalachian Mamaw, Lottie. Long before families could go to a grocery store and pick up fresh tomatoes year-round, families depended on what they could grow and preserve to help them make it through the winter. And today, I'm honored to carry that tradition forward. All right, the first thing I need to do is get a pot of water boiling and wash my tomatoes. Now I need boiling water because I'm going to score and blanch my tomatoes. That makes the skins just peel right off of them. So you'll need just a pretty big pot of boiling water. All right, so as that's coming to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and start to wash my tomatoes. Okay, let's talk about a few things that you're going to need today. I like to use quart-sized regular mouth jars. I like ball canning lids, although I have found that the 4-jars lids are high quality. Growing up, when we would can tomatoes, we would always use lemon juice. But throughout the years, we've decided that we just really don't like the taste that lemon juice gives to our tomatoes. We tend to grow very acidic tomatoes, and I just felt like the lemon juice just added a really tangy flavor that I could taste in my crushed tomatoes. So the last few years we have decided to stop using lemon juice and move towards only using citric acid in our tomatoes, and boy, the taste of the tomatoes just seemed to be so much better. Okay, once those tomatoes come out of the boiling water, they are going to go into an ice bath. So I'm going to fill my sink up with ice water so that when my tomatoes come out of the boiling water, I will just drop them right into my sink. Okay, so I like to use a rata, however you say it, tomato knife, and I'm going to score my tomatoes, which means I'm going to cut a little X in the bottom of my tomatoes. And then I'm going to just drop them down into boiling water. I usually do about, I don't know, 5 or 6 at a time till my water starts getting pretty close to the top. That should be enough for right now. Then I use one of these. I'm not exactly sure what these are called. I want to call it a spider or something, but I'll look it up and put it on the screen. I use one of these, and I just sort of move it around until I see that the skin is starting to kind of blister a little bit. You can see with this one. You can see that the skin has blistered and it's starting to come off, and you can just peel it right off. But from here, I drop it into my ice water, and I just move on to the next few that are ready. And this is the very quick process. Oddly enough, our electricity just went off. And that's so funny because a few minutes ago, I was standing here blanching my tomatoes, and I just thought, how hard would this be if I did not have power? If I didn't have lights, if I didn't have my electric stove, if I didn't have an ice maker to keep cranking out ice cold water, or ice from my refrigerator. And I thought, how hard would that be if I was outside boiling my tomatoes over an open fire? And then my power went out. So maybe Lottie's trying to teach me a lesson here. A lot of them would use open fires outside, or almost all the homes had wood burning cook stoves or coal burning cook stoves. I'm lucky enough that we do have a cook stove here at Curvy Creek Farm. A few years ago, we were so lucky to have found one pretty cheap on Craigslist. So we went and bought it and installed it in our dining room. And in the winter time, I love to cook on this wood stove. But I say to myself many, many times when I'm standing over it, and this is in the dead of winter, how thankful I am that I'm not having to do this in July. Well, our Appalachian grandmothers and all of our grandmothers and great-grandmothers have experienced this. They didn't have the simple ease of GE turning on their electric. So I'm going to take a pause, and I'm not going to go fire up my wood stove yet to can my tomatoes today, because boy, that would be miserable. But I'm going to take a break here. I'm going to pause for just a minute, get all of my tomatoes out of my ice water. They're in the ice water, and they are cool. And before I start peeling the skins off of them, I'm just going to get them out of the ice water, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, our power is showing no signs of coming back on. So I had all of these tomatoes that I had just blanched and are ready to be peeled and put into my pot to start processing them. And in case I have to put these in a refrigerator or something overnight, I needed to go ahead and get them peeled and cut up. So I thought I would show you what I do to peel my tomatoes. All right, so I'm using just a portable little battery, well, it's a rechargeable lamp from Amazon to give me some light. So I hope you can see. We'll move that over just a bit. Okay, so here's what I do. I start out by coring my tomato. Then I peel it. I peel that skin off there and see how it just slid right off. And then I quarter my tomato. Now what I can is actually crushed tomatoes. And you could get fancy. You can dice them. You can do all sorts of special ways to can your tomatoes. But I have found, and this is the way that Mom taught me, because her grandmother taught her that way, is that crushed tomatoes are just versatile. You can use them pretty much in anything. Now, if you see, sometimes the inside of it might have a bad spot, and I just go back through and take that out. But crushed tomatoes, to me, for what I use my tomatoes for, which is, I put them in, of course, soup, chili, stew, anything that would call for tomato juice. I just put a can of my crushed tomatoes in there. Also, and I don't know if this is something that people outside of Appalachia eat. I don't even know if it's something that people outside of my family eats. But we eat something that we just call macaroni and tomatoes. And it's just a box of macaroni boiled, and instead of like cheese or something, you would put a can of crushed tomatoes and mix it up. And we always serve that with salmon patties. Whenever we make salmon patties, mashed potatoes, and macaroni and tomatoes, that's always our go-to meal. Okay, so I'm just continuing. I figured I better get these done while I had the time. And in case our power doesn't come back on at all tonight, we have a generator that we'll have to hook our refrigerators and freezers to. So, or I don't know, I'll just have to hook our generator up, I guess, and be able to keep these in the refrigerator overnight. Yay, it's much later in the evening, and as you can tell, our electricity is back on. So now we're going to carry on with our next step. I went through and finished blanching and quartering the rest of the tomatoes. Now, they are all going to go in a big pot. And from here, let me move it to the back. It's very heavy. Now we have all of our tomatoes in a really big pot. I've quartered these tomatoes, and I'm going to take a masher and start mashing them. This is why I call these crushed tomatoes, because I'm going to crush them up. Let's see if you can see. As I'm crushing them, they're releasing a lot of juice and getting ready to start cooking down just a little bit. So I will crush them for a while, and then I'll let them heat and then come back in and crush again in a few more minutes. All right, so you can see that it's really starting to get very juicy as I come back and crush them up some more. Keep coming back to my tomatoes and just crushing them just a little more each time as they start to cook down. You'll see that it's producing a lot of juice, which is good. That's what I want. I like my crushed tomatoes to be very juicy. Okay, at this point, I also might want to pull out my stainless steel spoon and just start stirring them around a little, just so that I can bring up the bottom tomatoes. Okay, let's let those cook longer. Also now going to start filling my canner with some water. The first thing I need to do is I have like a rack. I'm not exactly sure what that's called, but it's going to go in the bottom of my canner. That will protect my jars from just sitting on that hot bottom of my canner. Now, I filled my quart jars, I fill about, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them before I set them down in my canner. Just to me, this canner is so big and heavy, it's a lot easier to fill it while it's sitting over here than to drag it back and forth. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat on medium. I have 7 down there that are heating. I'm actually going to go ahead and put my second rack in and put 7 more jars on top just to be heating these so that they'll be hot when I pull them out. Then I actually go ahead and put my lid on just so that it will start heating those jars. Okay, let's come back over and check on our tomatoes. They're starting to look so good. I don't know if you noticed, when I first started these tomatoes, they had a very light color to them. They almost looked pink to me. And as I cook them, they're going to take on that really dark, bright red color, which is wonderful. All right, as these are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and get my salt and my citric acid and my lids and everything ready so that when these are hot and cooked down and my jars are all hot, I'll be ready to start my processing. I have my Redmond's Real Salt ready to go. I also have my citric acid. I have a new fresh jar of that, so I know I'll have plenty of that. I need a jar lifter. I will also need a debubbler. And this one has, on the bottom of it, it will tell you your head space that you'll just stick down in your jar to see what your head space is. For tomatoes, you need to leave an inch of head space. So I'll show you when we fill one of the jars, I'll show you what an inch of head space looks like. And my lids, and then we'll be ready to go. So I'm going to go wash my lids and get those ready. Okay, so you see that I have my tomatoes. I'm going to do just one more, just kind of run through just to make sure that there are no big pieces left. But you can see that they are coming up to a boil. Now, I went back to my ball canning book that I use, and I use this every single time I can. I know that after you do this for years, I've been canning tomatoes, well, since I was a little girl, but on my own, at my own farm for 29 years now. We grew a garden the first year we got married, and I started canning tomatoes then. So I've done this a long time. And you would think, oh, you know what to do. You don't need to look at your ball canning book. But I always go back to my ball canning book. I pull it out. I open up to the page that says crushed tomatoes. I check any notes that I've made. I always like to double check how much citric acid, or if I was going to use lemon juice, how much lemon juice and citric acid and salt go into these. And I mainly check the time because I can so much, so many things. And I can't really exactly remember sometimes how long to let something cook or how long to pressure can or water bath can something. So I always go back to check. I'm going to turn these down just a bit so they won't boil over. I knew when I put these in there, I had a little too many tomatoes, but that's okay. Anyway, back to what I was saying, I always check my ball canning book. I just feel more confident if I check these, if I check with every recipe that I'm using. So when I went back to check my cook time on these tomatoes, it actually says to boil for 5 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer for 5 minutes and let these boil for about 5 minutes. All right, my tomatoes are done. So I moved them forward and I just turned my front small burner on low just to keep them hot as I'm going to start filling my jars. You'll need a jar lifter. And I just lift one jar out. And then this kind of just becomes an assembly line. So I put a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of, let's see, I like this one better. A teaspoon of half a teaspoon of citric acid. I fill my jar. I'm going to turn these jars down in my canner because they're starting to boil and I don't necessarily want that. You need an inch of head space. So when I take my funnel off, you can measure it if you need to, but really it's just to about the ring. If you just go to about where the little wider part of the jar is. At this time I also did give it another round. Do it to make sure there's no chips in my jar. If there's any kind of a chip or anything that's stuck to the lid, to the mouth of your lid, it's not going to seal. So then I put my lid and my band And I tighten it just to about finger tight. You don't want it really, really, really tight, but you do need it tight enough that it's starting to seal. Isn't it beautiful? All right, so I'm going to drop that one down in and start my assembly line over. So again, I'm going to show you again. We do a teaspoon of a non-iodized salt, a half a teaspoon of citric acid. I'm going to fill my jar. Take your same little tool that I measured at the top, and I'm going to run it down into my tomatoes just to make sure there's not any large tomato bubbles in there. Now I can see that I need just a little bit more to get it to our 1-inch headspace. Okay, so my headspace looks correct on my jar. I'm going to take my clean cloth, wipe my lid off, my mouth off. I'm going to run my finger around it just to make sure there are no nicks or anything stuck on the lid. I'm going to put my lid on, my band. I'm going to do it to finger tight, and then put it back in my canner and move on to the next one. Okay, let's try to go really close in on this one. So let's start our assembly line of a teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon of citric acid. I'm going to fill my jar. You can see how much these cook down. Okay, and I think that is just about perfect. Okay, I'm going to take my clean cloth, rub around it, feel to make sure there are no nicks. Add my lid, add my band. Ooh, that's hot. Now sometimes you're going to run across bands that you have to really work with to get them to sit on there. Okay, and then add this one to my jar or my canner and just continue right on. Before I put this jar into the canner, I wanted to show it to you. It's a square mason jar, and it is one of my favorite jars that I own. I absolutely love a square mason jar. I wish they would make them all square. I have an All-American canner. It's a 930 pressure canner, and this one has opposite sides need to be tightened. So I have my lid on, and I'm going to tighten down my lid. Okay, now I'm going to turn my heat back up. I turn it up to about medium high and let it come up to pressure. Well, it's the next day. It was about 11:30 last night when I pulled the last jar from the canner, but that's okay. Seeing my pantry shelves fill up never gets old. I hope this video encourages you to preserve something, whether it's canning tomatoes or learning the tradition of canning from someone you love. I am so thankful that my mom learned how to can tomatoes from her Appalachian Mamaw, Lottie. and I am very grateful to share that tradition with you. Thank you for spending part of your day here on Curvy Creek Farm. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and come back for more videos as we share simple living in a busy world. And remember that simple living is not just about doing less, it's about remembering what matters most.